Hey everybody, welcome to another YouTube video. I'm Kaya with Exercises for Injuries. Today we're going to be talking about 6 movements that you can do for knee pain. So we have our list here. We've got a mix of strengthening exercises with stretching exercises. So if we can strengthen the muscles around our knee joint and then also stretch those muscles, we're going to put ourselves at a lot less risk for knee pain and knee injury. So if you're already suffering from knee pain, this video is for you. If you're not, we'll have some great movements for you to prevent knee injuries or knee pain in the future. So these are all going to be seated exercises. We've had requests from some of you from some of our other videos for knee pain that had some standing movements or movements on the ground that they were too hard on your knees. So hopefully these will work for you to help you with your knee pain. So I'm going to take a seat. As always, just like when we're standing, we want really good posture while we're sitting. So I'm going to kind of move up onto the front of my seat, sitting up really tall. My feet are planted on the floor. My knees are over top of my ankles, shoulders over hips. My core is engaged, shoulders are down the back. So sitting up really nice and tall here. So the first thing we're going to do is a strengthening exercise, and we're going to work on the hamstring. So as I said before, by strengthening the muscles around our knee, we're going to be able to protect our knee joint. So I'm going to lengthen one leg out in front of me, flexing the toes back towards me. And then from here, I'm going to press into the floor with my heel. And then once I'm pressing into the floor, I'm going to drag that heel back towards me. So if you're doing this at home, pressing down, you can feel the back of your thigh, making sure that that muscle is tightening up as you drag your leg back. So I'm going to move my chair back a little bit. So pressing into the heel, drag that heel back. So we're going to work to do 10 on each side. If you're first starting, that might mean, you only do 5 on each side. Good, and so ideally we're not putting any strain on the knee here. If having your leg out straight puts any sort of pain into the knee joint, we're just going to not quite straighten the leg completely when we have the leg out. So I'm going to keep a slight bend in the knee and then start to drag my heel towards me. Still sitting up tall. And then I can move on to the other side. Good, so we're strengthening our hamstrings here. And as always, we're using our core sitting here. Good. Okay, so again, working up to 10 on each side of those ones. So next we're going to work on our quads. So those are the muscles on the tops of our thighs. Again, I'm starting with that original leg, lengthening out my leg, sitting up tall. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep the rest of my body still. So that means engaging my core, grounding down through this foot. And then I'm going to lift this leg up and lower it back down. So this is going to put little to no strain on the knee joint. You can always have a little bit of a bend in the knee to make it easier. Good. So still those toes are coming back towards me. And the only thing that's moving is my leg. So I'm not rounding forward. I'm not using momentum to throw my leg up. I'm staying super still, super controlled, lifting and lowering. So it's going to use your core a lot in this one. And the top of your leg, this muscle, your quadriceps, that should be engaging. So you should feel this tighten up. Good. So I'm going to work for 10 on this side, lengthen out my opposite leg, and do the same thing on that side. So the whole time I'm doing this exercise, my leg's engaged. Good, and again, working for 10. So those last 2 exercises, we're strengthening, we're working on the backs of our legs, the front of our legs. When we have strong leg muscles, they're going to help absorb the impact instead of it going into our knees, right? So when we're walking or running or biking, any of the impact that we have in our legs, stronger muscles will help absorb that impact so it's not going into our knee joints. So the next thing we're going to do is to work on bringing some more movement into the lumbar spine. So we're gonna be doing cat-cow. So if you've ever done yoga class or anything like that, it's a movement of the spine. So when we have poor spinal flexibility, that can translate into knee pain or hip pain, right? Because everything's connected. So without proper movement in the spine, we might translate that, we might make up for that immobility in the spine with our knees or our hips. So by bringing more movement into the spine, we're gonna help with knee pain and preventing knee pain. So for cat-cow, I'm gonna sit up tall. My feet are planted just like at the beginning. My hands are either on my thighs or my knees. I'm gonna use those for leverage as we do the movement. So on a deep breath in, I'm gonna bring my stomach forward, my shoulders back, and then on an exhale, I'm gonna curl forward. So I'm rounding my spine the other way. Inhale, I'm kind of arching my back. And exhale, I'm pulling my core towards my belly button, using my hands on my knees for support to pull this way. So inhales, come forward, chest open. And then exhale, round away. Good. So again, we're gonna aim for 10 of these, so 10 breaths. So an inhale and an exhale is 1 rep. Good, and really thinking about starting this movement from the pelvis. So thinking about bringing the hips back, then bringing the hips forward. And then we're working on that mobility in the lumbar spine, the lower spine. Good. So the next thing we're gonna come into is a side lunge. So you can always do a lunge on the floor, but this is gonna be a chair modified version. So I'm gonna turn on my chair. One leg is kind of gonna come off the chair. One thigh stays on the chair. Good, so I'm kind of coming into a lunge, but the nice thing is when you're doing it on a chair, you don't have to have that any knee on the floor, because I know that that's where a lot of people's discomfort comes from in a lunge. And we also don't really have much weight at all on the knees, so we're getting the benefit of a stretch without the impact on the knees. So my hips are both facing towards my front leg. I'm stacking this knee over top of this ankle, this hip over top of this knee, and then my back toes, I'm gonna use those to press into the floor. I'm gonna tighten this bum muscle on the outside, and that's gonna open up through my hip, so I'm gonna stretch my hip flexor and my quadricep. So again, like I was saying at the beginning, we worked on strengthening our quads. Now we're gonna stretch them, because tight muscles that are too tight can also lead to injury, right? Because we need our muscles to be able to move as well. So my core is engaged, my shoulders are down, all of those key things about my posture I'm still doing in the lunge. And I'm gonna try for 10 deep breaths on this side. Good, and then once I'm done there, spinning back around, other side. This leg comes down, my opposite thigh is on the chair now, toes pressing in to open up. So I'm looking for a stretch on the front of this leg, so my thigh, my quad, and my hip flexor. Good, so I achieved that by pressing into the back toes, squeezing this glute, and as always, pulling the belly button in. So this is super active. Our muscles should be really working here. This whole leg is firing up. My core is working to keep my posture tall. And again, working to 10 breaths. But you know, at the beginning, you might only be able to have a few breaths and then you switch sides, but increasing that each time you do it if you can. Okay, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a band. So if you don't have a band, you can always just use using your hands to kind of create some resistance, which I'll show you in a second. So I'm still sitting up tall. This time I'm gonna bring my feet together. I'm gonna wrap the band around and then grab the handles or wherever I can reach on top. If you don't have a band, this is where you could use your hands on the outsides of your legs for resistance. So we're gonna come into clamshells. So this is gonna strengthen, you're gonna feel it on the side of your hip. It's gonna be strengthening our glutes on the side. So feet are together, firmly planted. I'm holding my resistance band up top, and then I'm separating my knees and then slowly bringing them back. So knees out, kind of hold it for a second, feel that squeeze on the outside of your hips, and then bring it back. So you might feel this in your thighs as well. Your core should be working. And again, I'm gonna work for 10 of these. And with this whole routine, if you're able to do all the suggested reps of each one, then go through the whole cycle again, up to 3 times. Good. So if it's too hard with a band or with resistance, we can always just do this exercise this way. As long as you're feeling the sides of your hips work, then you're getting the benefit from this. Because again, strong stabilizing muscles like our gluteus medius, which is on kind of the side of your hip, those are gonna help with picking up the shock of walking or running, whatever you're doing. And also better posture, better movement patterns that will protect the knees. Great. Okay, the last thing we're gonna do is one more stretch. We're gonna do a figure 4 stretch. So just like we worked our hips, now we're gonna stretch out the hips. So I'm gonna lengthen out one leg. Now, if you do have knee pain, having the knee locked, probably not a good idea. So I'm gonna keep a slight bend. So for some people, just crossing the ankles here is enough stretch in the hip, and then this is a perfect place to stop. If you need to come deeper, we're gonna bring this bottom leg, we're gonna bend it at the knee. So again, I'm looking for a knee on top of ankle. This top knee is bent, and to protect this knee, I'm gonna flex these toes back. So that's gonna engage the muscles around my knee to keep it a little bit safer, sitting up tall. And then I can kind of press down this thigh away from me, and that's gonna help open up the hip even more. So this is the full version of the stretch. So this is where we're working towards. But remember, always start off in an easier place, okay? So if this is a big stretch for you, just sit here, take 10 deep breaths. Maybe next time you move a little bit higher up. Just finding out where you are and giving yourself time to progress. Good. So once I'm done 10 deep breaths on that side, I can gently release this foot down and switch to the other side. Both sides are going to feel different. Everybody's got a bit of a different strength and flexibility on each side. So don't worry if one side feels different. Just work with what you have. And remember, if you can't take deep breaths and relax in the stretch, then you've gone too far and you need to come out a little bit, okay? So working with where you're at, and then every time you do it, you know, trying to progress a little bit further. Good. And I'll let that side go. Again, working towards 10 breaths on each side. So those were 6 movements for you, stretching and strengthening muscles that will help you with your knee pain or preventing future knee pain. I really hope those were helpful. As always, you can always check out exercisesforinjuries.com. There's a little search bar there. You can type in what your question is, what your injury is, a certain body part. There's just endless information and articles on there. So it is, there's bound to be an answer to whatever question that you have. So I'm Kaya with Exercises for Injuries, and I really hope that this was helpful. Take care.